The night began like any other on Bravo. Bright lights, glossy floors, and a studio audience buzzing with the kind of restless anticipation that only a live taping can conjure. But beneath that familiar surface, something darker simmered. Even the air felt coiled, as if it knew a storm was about to break long before anyone spoke a word. Andy Cohen sensed it first. He stood at his desk, fingertips grazing the edges of his note cards, eyes scanning the crowd with a quiet sharpness. His trademark grin flashed, but behind it was calculation, almost as if he had come prepared for a chess match rather than a celebrity chat. "Ladies and gentlemen," he announced, voice smooth enough to mask the blade beneath. "Tonight we have someone the entire world has an opinion about. Please welcome the Duchess of Sussex, Meghan Markle." The applause came. Not wild, not electric, but measured, curious, wary. And then she appeared. Meghan stepped onto the stage, draped in a midnight navy blazer, her movements precise, her posture carved from royal training. She offered Andy a smile, perfect, poised, but brittle around the edges. The kind of smile crafted for magazine covers rather than real conversation. "Andy," she said, shaking his hand with a grip firmer than expected, "thanks for having me. It's good to be here." Good. A word that sounded suspiciously controlled. They took their seats, and for a split second, the set held its breath. Andy went in gently at first. "How's life in California? You and Harry settling in?" Her answer came with that polished cadence she'd perfected in interviews. "Life is beautiful. We don't really settle. We build. We create. That's what we're doing in California. Building something meaningful." A polite laugh rustled through the audience, though something about her tone lingered in the air like a faint metallic taste. Andy felt it too. His smile stiffened. "And how are you and Harry? The tabloids love to speculate." Meghan's eyes flashed. "Barely, but enough. We're strong. The tabloids invent chaos because they profit from fantasy. People should stop obsessing over what they don't understand." A shift swept through the audience. Small, but noticeable. Meghan's voice carried a sharpness that didn't match the soft Hollywood lighting. Andy adjusted his cards. He registered the defensiveness and stored it like ammunition. "Well," he continued lightly, "your father has been in the press again." Her expression froze. That polished mask cracked a fraction. "Andy, my father chose the spotlight over his family. He's made his choices. That chapter is closed." Her tone didn't just answer the question, it erased it. The room cooled. The audience exchanged glances. Andy inhaled slowly, feeling the interview tilt towards something more combustible. He leaned forward, eyes narrowing just slightly, just enough to signal the shift. "Let's talk about royal life then." The real tension was only beginning to rise. Andy's voice dropped into that deceptively casual register he used when he was about to strike a nerve. "Your time in the royal family. You once called it overwhelming. Some people felt you weren't prepared." A flicker crossed Meghan's face. Too quick for the untrained eye, but Andy caught it. A shadow, a calculation, a tightening of resolve. "Prepared?" she echoed, giving a laugh that carried no warmth. "You can't prepare for something that archaic. It's an institution frozen in time. I adapted better than anyone expected." Her confidence was sharp enough to slice through the studio air. The audience shifted. A few leaned forward, sensing the temperature rise. Andy tilted his head with a soft smile. "And yet, the British public didn't exactly embrace you. Why do you think that is?" Her lips curved into a smirk, deliberate and cool. "Because I didn't behave the way they wanted. I wasn't docile. I wasn't there to bow and fit into their outdated boxes. That's their discomfort, not my failure." The gasp that rippled across the room might as well have been scripted. The energy changed again, tightened, electrified. Andy leaned back, swirling the ice in his glass as if weighing his next move. He'd interviewed controversial figures before. Politicians, divas, reality chaos in human form. But this was a different beast. Meghan wasn't just defensive. She radiated a defiance that swallowed the oxygen around her. He decided to test the edges. "Let's talk about your career before royalty," he said. Tone deceptively light. "You were an actress. Suits gave you visibility. Do you ever miss that world?" Meghan blinked, her posture stiffening. "No. Acting was a stepping stone. I've outgrown it. My work now has global impact." A murmur swept the audience. Not admiration, but something closer to disbelief. Meghan didn't flinch. Andy's eyebrows lifted. "A lot of people loved you on that show. Some say it's the foundation that made everything else possible." Meghan's smile hardened. "My foundation is who I am, not what job I once had." Andy closed his folder, not because he was done, but because he was just getting started. "All right," he said softly. "Let's talk about your marriage." People are endlessly curious. Rumors, pressure, distance. Are you and Harry truly as solid as you say? Her gaze sharpened. We're stronger than ever. The noise is irrelevant. Honestly, it's laughable that people believe strangers know anything about our relationship. Another murmur, louder this time. Andy let the silence stretch. 3 long seconds that felt like 20. Then he struck. So zero pressure, no strain, not even from the public attention or your own. Projects. Meghan's smile didn't break, but it strained. Andy, everything you're implying is fiction. We're united. Full stop. The words echoed across the studio, brittle and final. Andy's eyes gleamed. He had found the first real crack, and he wasn't done. Not even close. Andy sensed the shift, the subtle tremor beneath Meghan's polished delivery, her jaw a little tighter, her breathing a touch sharper, the kind of micro tells that only appear when a guest is balancing confidence with rising irritation. He leaned forward, elbows resting lightly on the desk, voice dropping into a tone that suggested curiosity, but carried something far more incisive underneath. Let's go back to your time in the UK, he said. There were mixed feelings among the British public. Some were supportive, others less so. How do you see it now? Meghan's eyes narrowed, not dramatically, but just enough. I see it for what it was, she replied, her tone cool and cutting. Prejudice, bias. People weren't ready for someone like me challenging centuries-old expectations. Silence swept through the room, heavy, expectant. Andy didn't blink. Some critics argue it wasn't about race, he said gently, almost kindly. They say it was your attitude, the decisions you made, the way you carried yourself. A quiet gasp rolled through the audience like a low wave. Meghan leaned in, her expression sharpening. That's what people say when they don't want to admit their bias. They call it attitude because it's easier than confronting the truth. Her words cut through the air like glass, but Andy wasn't rattled. If anything, the tension fed him. Do you take any responsibility, he asked softly, for how things unfolded, even a fraction? Her response came instantly, too fast, almost rehearsed. Responsibility for what? For being myself? For not bowing low enough? If being authentic offends people, that's a reflection of them, not me. Another shift in the audience, restless, unsettled. Andy let the moment breathe, then he pivoted. All right, he said, voice light but eyes sharp. Let's talk about your biggest interview, the Oprah sit-down. Millions watched, but some of the claims you made have been questioned. The studio fell into a hush so complete it felt amplified. Meghan's smile thinned. I stand by every word. That was my truth. Andy rolled her phrase back slowly, deliberately. Your truth, he repeated. But truth is usually truth, not versions of it. Meghan stiffened. Are you calling me dishonest? Andy didn't hesitate. I'm pointing out contradictions. If a spotlight had moved closer to their faces, the intensity wouldn't have changed. The studio itself seemed to lean in. For example, Andy continued, you told Oprah you and Harry were married before the official ceremony, but the Archbishop publicly clarified that wasn't a legal marriage. Do you see how that might seem? Misleading. Meghan's breath hitched, just once. What Harry and I shared privately was sacred. The church's paperwork is irrelevant. But that's not what you said, Andy countered, voice unflinching. Millions believed you. For the first time, her composure visibly shook. Andy pressed on, not cruelly, but with surgical precision. And then there were the claims about having your passport taken away, being completely trapped. Yet records show you traveled, attended public events, even took vacations. The audience murmured, stunned. Meghan's voice dropped to a cold whisper. You don't understand what a gilded cage feels like. Andy smiled, not with amusement, but with recognition. Oh, I understand one thing, he replied. Inconsistency, and people notice it. The studio air tightened until it hummed. This was no longer an interview. It was the start of a reckoning. The tension in the studio had thickened to the point where even the audience barely dared to breathe. Meghan sat rigid, her blazer perfectly aligned, but her eyes carried the flicker of someone cornered and fighting the instinct to strike back. Andy sensed it. He could feel the interview shifting from contentious to historic. He folded his hands calmly, his voice deceptively mild. Meghan, let's talk about perception. A warning flashed across her expression, swift, defensive. You've had very public breakages, Andy continued softly. Your father, your sister, palace staff, old friends. A lot of people feel you've burned bridges. Why do you think that keeps happening? Meghan snapped her gaze toward him, the thin veneer of Hollywood warmth finally peeling away. Because people betray me, Andy. They sell lies. They twist my intentions. Every broken relationship in my life has come from someone choosing profit or publicity over loyalty. Andy blinked once, slow, deliberate. So, the common denominator in all of these conflicts isn't you. A collective ooh rippled through the audience like a shockwave. Her lips pressed together, then parted in outrage. I will not be psychoanalyzed by someone who profits off gossip. I've spent my life trying to rise above toxic people and toxic systems. Andy leaned forward slightly, voice dropping to a razor's edge. Toxic people, he echoed. Toxic systems. Or anyone who doesn't bend to your narrative. Her cheeks flushed crimson. That's insulting and frankly, sexist. Andy set his drink aside with deliberate calm. No, Meghan, this isn't sexism. This is accountability. The word hit like a slap. He continued, voice unwavering. Look at the pattern. Anyone who challenges you becomes an enemy. Anyone who questions your choices becomes toxic. Anyone who doesn't applaud becomes part of the problem. Her jaw tightened to keep it from trembling. Andy's voice deepened, slicing through the heavy silence. You became a global figure when you joined the royal family. But from that moment on, every grievance became a headline. Every private moment became content. Every conflict became a brand opportunity. Meghan sucked in a breath as if absorbing a blow. You built your identity, Andy said, eyes locked on hers, not on who you were, but on what marrying into that family allowed you to be. Her voice cracked around the edges. That is outrageous. And yet, Andy pressed, you've turned every exit into a spotlight, every criticism into fuel, every platform into a stage. Meghan's composure wavered, her jaw trembling now, fingers gripping the chair arms until her knuckles blanched. Andy's voice lowered to something almost pitying, but still devastating. Maybe it isn't the tabloids, or the palace, or your father. Maybe, just maybe. The chaos keeps following you because you're the one carrying it. A stunned silence swept over the studio. Meghan's breath shuddered. The mask was cracking, fracture by fracture, and the breaking point was seconds away. The studio lights dimmed just slightly, an unplanned shift, almost as if the room itself sensed the emotional detonation that had just occurred. The audience sat frozen, hundreds of eyes locked on Meghan, who sat trembling in silence, her breath shallow and uneven. Andy didn't look triumphant. He looked steady, determined, like someone who had decided there would be no turning back. Meghan, he said quietly, I'm not here to tear you down. I'm here to ask what millions of people have been trying to understand for years. She swallowed hard, blinking back the tears threatening to spill. What do you want from me, Andy? She whispered, voice shaking. A confession? An apology for being human? For protecting myself? Her voice cracked, not with fragility, but with a rawness the audience hadn't seen from her all night. No, Andy replied, his tone almost gentle, but unyielding. I want honesty, not the polished version, not the brand, the person. Meghan shook her head, her hands trembling in her lap. You think you know me, she said bitterly. But all you've ever seen is the headline version, the character people created out of bias or boredom. Andy didn't interrupt. For the first time tonight, he allowed the silence to belong to her. She exhaled shakily. You're right about one thing, she continued, her voice steadier now, though her eyes were glassy. I walked away from places that didn't protect me. I cut ties with people who hurt me. And maybe sometimes, yes, I reacted out of fear instead of clarity. The audience leaned in. It wasn't an admission of guilt. It was an admission of impact. But everything I did, she said, placing a trembling hand on her chest, I did to survive the pressure, the scrutiny, the expectations. Everyone wanted a version of me that never existed. And when I refused to shrink, I became the villain in their story. Andy's expression softened, just a fraction, but he didn't fully yield. And do you ever think, he asked quietly, that sometimes survival can turn into defensiveness? That protecting yourself can start to look like pushing people away? Meghan's eyes widened, not with anger this time, but with the sting of recognition. For the first time, her voice was barely a whisper. I don't know anymore. The entire room seemed to exhale at once. Andy leaned back, not victorious, not smug, but reflective. "This isn't about blame," he said. "It's about understanding the moment where everything fractured." Meghan wiped a tear from her cheek, breathing slowly as she tried to reassemble herself. "Maybe," she whispered, "I fractured too." The audience went silent, a silence deeper than any gasp or murmur that had filled the studio before. And just like that, the narrative flipped. Not a clash, not a walkout, but a moment of unguarded truth. Messy, human, cinematic. Andy looked into the camera, his voice low. "This conversation isn't finished. Not here, not now, but it's a start."